What's your intentions?
Everybody's been asking that the last 6 months since I ran Vegas in the fall. I don't have any. I mean, it's, going back to that test session. I left the test session. I went and ran a test in Leah's car with Don Schumacher, which was the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life, by the way.
Why?
After it was over, you get home and you're like, that was really stupid. Shouldn't have done that. And you're driving a car that can run 330 mile an hour. I went 318 that first test.
Wow.
And the car was so far ahead of where my brain was. I'm like,
Yeah.
as long as it goes and does what it's supposed to do, it's fine. But there's a number of things, a cylinder goes out. And when a cylinder goes out, it pushes the car that direction. Mm-hmm. And it's like there's so many things that could go wrong. But if you're not on top of it, you're never going to catch it. It'd be bad. And I realized it when I left. I finally was like, this is crazy. Because when we started driving different cars, you just work up to it. You just run part throttle or this and that.
Yep.
It doesn't work that way in drag racing. It's all off of timers and everything else. So how they do that and get you used to it is you go a shorter distance. You go to the 330 cone. Then you go to the 660 cones, and then you do full pulls. So that's the steps I went through in 2 days driving that car. And got back, and I'm like, man, that's the dumbest thing I've ever done. But I kept testing with them periodically. And I literally last year, after the Vegas spring race, the four-wide race, I tested. And I never felt the tires spinning. Like, we'd get out 200 feet, and you're already running 150 mile an hour by then. And it starts spinning tires, but it's still pulling at 1.6 Gs. And you're like, all right, my brain's catching up. No, it was spinning the tires. And I had no idea that that's what was going on. So I got done with that test, and I said, I'm done testing with you guys. I said, of all the racing I've done and all the dirt racing, if I can't feel the tires spinning, I don't need to be driving this race car.
Yeah.
So her car chief worked 2 shops down from ours, and when he came over and joined our organization and he started our team, he goes, hey, I got an idea. There's a alcohol team over here that runs, and they said they'd let you do some testing if you wanted. All right, well, that's a 275 mile an hour car. We'll try that. And went and did a test session with them. Literally hit it off with Rich and Richie, it's father-son, Rich McPhillips, Sr. and Jr., and hit it off with these guys and did a couple tests. And after the second test, we were coming back after a run, and Rich told me, he goes, I'd feel comfortable taking you to a race. And I'm like, you're crazy. And he goes, no, he goes, you're doing everything right. He goes, you're smooth with everything. He goes, you're ready to go try this. And I laughed about it and kind of blew it off. I mean, literally got back from that and had a meeting with Don Hawk, and we were working on the TV deal.
Yeah.
And so I didn't think anything about it. My head got distracted. And I told Leah on the plane about it. And she goes, yeah, you're doing a great job. And I just, again, blew it off. About 2 weeks later, I got the phone call from him. He goes, hey, seats opened up for Vegas. He goes, probably won't run well out there because the blower cars have an advantage because the altitude's so high. They can change pulley combinations and get the boost back. And I said, yeah, I'd love to do it. I mean, I just want to get the experience. And, little things like at the end of the run when you go past the line, you throw the chutes, shut the fuel off, you're on the brakes. There's a guy standing there with flags, and you got to know what he's telling you. If this guy is allowed to go first, or you're going first, or whoever's turning off. And it's like, I don't even know what the flags mean yet.
Right.
So I remember when he called, I said, hey, can I call you back in 5 minutes? He goes, yeah. Well, I hung up and I picked up the phone, called Leah. I said, hey, should I do this? It's like, I didn't even have the confidence to do it. And she goes, yeah. She goes, I think it'd be great. She goes, we'll all be there. We won't let you get in trouble. So that's how the Vegas race in the fall happened, and got that first race under her belt.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That at your age and everything you've ever done, and you'd think you'd had the shit scared out of you, where nothing would be in, nothing would, you'd lack confidence in nothing, but you're transparent enough to admit, like, hey man, I wasn't sure whether I needed to do this or not, or could do this. So you go drive that car. And how does that experience go?
The race was awesome out there. I mean, we were second quick qualifier, and that's all car. That's not me. But my reaction times were good, and through the race weekend, we make it to the finals. I line up against a 19-year-old girl that her family has a big history in drag racing, and it was her first appearance in a final round at a national race. Yep. And so here you got 2 rookies, first time for her in a national finals. I'm in the finals my first time, and I'm like, man, this is awesome. I mean, I got to run all the runs through the weekend going to the finals. So I didn't really didn't care if I won or lost necessarily because I was there to get the experience. But we get down there, and I lost by 1 inch. There's 15,840 inches in a quarter mile, and I lost by 1 inch.
Yeah.
2 10,000ths of a second.
Yeah.
And as much as I wanted to be disappointed about it, when I pulled off there, because we didn't run radios in our car, and so I don't know till I turn the corner whether you won or lost.
Wow. Yeah.
And I saw it wasn't us, but I remember looking over when I got out of the car, and I looked at Madison when she got out of the car and how excited she was, and I thought, this is really cool. I said, this is the perfect scenario. I said, if I would have won that race, everybody would have said, hey, this class is easy, and it's not easy. We just had an awesome weekend, and I did a fair job at my part of it, and the team did an awesome job. But to see her win her first national, and I even spent time with her the next race at Pomona, and we talked for 20 minutes in the staging lanes. I wasn't racing, she was, and listening to that 19-year-old girl talk, the composure she has and her mindset, she's a buddy of mine now. I think the world of her. I think she's an awesome racer, and there's absolutely no shame in saying I got beat by a 19-year-old girl in that scenario.
Yeah.
The hard part was getting through the weekend, and before we even left, all the guys going, yeah, you were short by 1 inch, and then here comes Lee over your shoulder going, yep, that's what I get every night when we go to bed.
Oh, man. That's awesome. Well, we got to ask about the Wally, but real quick, guys, are we on hard out? And Mike? No, we're not. We're not? We're good?
So, you drive the car you're driving today is your car.
No,
you're still driving.
I'm still driving for Rich and Richie.
Okay.
It's not even the same car that I ran in Vegas last fall.
Oh.
So they run Jasmine Salinas' car. They run a car that Mike Coughlin and Matt Cummins split. They run different regions and split the national races. The car I'm driving was a car that they were building for Rich Jr. to drive. Even before I did the first test, and at the end of the year after the Vegas race, they started talking to me about, hey, do you have any interest in doing something next year? And so we put the package together. And
what is the package?
I'm running 12 of the 14 national events. They don't run every race that Top Fuel and Funny Car run. Okay. So running 12 of the 14. And then there's about 4, maybe 5 regional races that we're going to run, and that's more just for the points than anything. You can't win the championship just off the national points alone.
So you
have to
for
run.
The championship.
That's what Pops wants to do now. So Rich Senior's the boss, and he even said that. He goes, if we get off to a good start, he goes, we need to run some regionals because you'd have a shot at winning a national championship. Wow. So right now, as we sit, we're second in points. But there's throw-out races, and you can't claim all the races you run anyway. So, the points don't really mean anything this early in the season. But we're off to a good start.
Have you ever said no to anything?
No. No to no.
Yeah.
Other than just testing in Leah's car anymore, I'm like, I'm good for a while.
You're good for a while. So, I think that if I'm going to play Tony Stewart fan for a minute. I love that you're, this experience you're having with Leah has taken you into this new world, and you're diving in head first, and you're competitive, and I hope that somehow, some way, you end up, at the top ranks competing. Right? I love to see, this entirely unique new chapter of your life happen. And is that a possibility? Is that for people that are out there that are wondering where you're headed and what you're going to end up doing? Is that are you open? You got the door open to something like that?
I think you and I have been in this business, and we've been around each other long enough. You know that I've kind of adopted the attitude of you never say never. Yeah. I never thought I'd own a racetrack. I never dreamed of owning a race team. I never dreamed of owning a series. None of this stuff was ever planned. There was never a master plan for any of the things that I'm doing outside of me driving race cars. Mm-hmm. Everything else just has happened and been circumstances. So I'm not going to sit here and say, no, I won't try to drive a Top Fuel car. Hagen absolutely wears me out about driving that funny car. And I keep telling him, I'm like, I don't want to drive that funny car. He goes, but you are a funny car driver. You just don't know you're a funny car driver. Yeah. He goes, you'll get driving this funny car, and you won't want to drive that dragster anymore. And J.R. Todd says it, and Ron Cap says it, and Cruz Petragon. I'm like, you guys are all brain dead. I said, if that thing blows up in the dragster, it's behind me. The flames are going behind me. You blow up, you drive right into the fire, and it's right in front of your face the whole time. And then you got to try to figure out how to get stopped without crashing.
Yeah.
I said, I'm good.
So he has said
comfortable.
no to something then.
Yeah, well,
Funny car.
yes and no.
For now.
Yes and no, because
we all know one day.
Ron Capps at his championship speech last year at the end of the season was giving me a hard time in his speech even about, he goes, we know you're a funny car guy. We got to get you in one. And Hagen is sitting beside me because we're at our team table, and he is kicking me under the table like, I told you so. So I told him, I finally gave in. I said, I'll do a test day in it. So
when is that?
I don't know yet.
Don't know yet.
I've got to make sure my life insurance policies are current and all that stuff. But, I mean, this guy is relentless, man. I mean, he will not let me off the hook. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it. I actually my dad at 85, Lee and I got him for Christmas, got him a Frank Holly driving school deal. So he went and drove a Super Comp car at 85. And I drove Frank Holly's alcohol funny car just to get used to it. But it's a way different deal than driving that dragster. You hit the gas. And the first run I made, it was like all this silver stuff was in the air, and I'm like, whoa. And that's the clutch. You know, it's clutch dust and stuff. And then I'm like, crap, I'm still driving this damn thing. I'm running over 100 mile an hour, and I'm sitting there looking in the air like, wow, butterflies and stuff, but looking at this clutch dust. But I wasn't ready for it, you know? Yeah. So it was good to do that, and that's kind of the approach we're going into this test of, you know, drive Frank Holly's car, get an idea what it's like, and, you know, crawl before you walk.
You've been broadcasting. You've been in the booth at NASCAR. You've been in the booth at the drag races. What do you get out of that? What's that experience like for you?
I love it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I get to work with somebody I really like with Clint Boyer, and I love Mike Joy. I mean, Mike's knows more about cars and has forgot more about cars than you and I will ever learn combined. But I really enjoy it. It's I wasn't sure whether I was going to like it or not, and I think it was more the fans' response kind of was what kept me motivated to do more of it.
Right.
Seeing the response on forums and this and that, and I don't normally get on that stuff, but it's like, man, if I'm bad, I just want to find a way to get out of this gracefully and let somebody else do a better job. But I thoroughly enjoy it, though. Yeah. I like it.
Do you agree at the beginning of the year to do a handful of races, or do you do it almost on a race by race basis, and then they just invite you back and see if your schedule's available and that kind of thing?
At the end of the year last year, they said, let us know what races you want to do next year. And so we sat down once we got the NHRA schedule, and basically the races that I've done this year are in between. Our off weekends for the NHRA series. We're taking a couple weeks off here coming up. Leah, this is the balance in life that I'm having to learn.
To ask that.
She wants some family time and wants to go. You know, she has a couple weeks off with the NHRA side, so she wants to go. You know, go boating and surfing and hanging out with her friends a little bit. So. You know, it's creating that balance in our life now of, you know, work when we can and as much as I can. I like to work. I do better staying busy than not being busy. Yeah. She is the opposite. When she gets away from the racetrack, she wants to be away from the racetrack. So I think that's one of the reasons that our relationship works, that, you know, we're directly in line on a lot of things, but there's things we're polar opposites on. But the broadcasting stuff's fun. I really enjoy it.
One of the last things I want to touch on with you is Stewart-Haas Racing. You know, that's been something you've been involved in for a really long time. You were, you know, you became a car owner while you're still full time in a NASCAR series. Seems like a lifetime ago when we were driving in NASCAR together. But with all of these things that I see that you continue to add to your life, how do you manage that ability to stay focused on what your involvement is with NASCAR, with your team, their direction? You got a lot of big things happening within that team. New drivers coming in, Harvick retiring. Where's your involvement currently with Stewart-Haas?
You know, and I'm glad you asked that because all the time you're like, oh, he doesn't care about NASCAR anymore. He doesn't care about sprint car racing anymore. It's the farthest thing from the truth. I love our race teams. I'm still passionate about our race teams, but I get to go race with my wife on the weekends. So sorry, I may not be at the track on the weekend, but that doesn't mean I don't care about what's going on. It doesn't mean I'm not involved in what's going on. But the reason we're able to do this, and this has been a long time in the making. I mean, we've had this for a long time, is structure of with the sprint car series. I have a key point person that reports to me. Mm-hmm. Eldora, Jerry Gappins does a great job for us at Eldora Speedway. He reports to me. Kelly Antonelli runs the drag race program. She's the one that reports to me on the NHRA side. Greg Zippadelli, Brian McKinley, they're the guys that report to me on the NASCAR side. So we have a good structure of people. And when I need to get involved and make big decisions, I do that. And when they call and say, hey, you need to make a phone call to this guy, this is what's going on, I need you to help us with this. Absolutely, I get involved in that. But if anybody and all these fans think that I'm sitting there making setup decisions and making calls, they're wrong. You know, there's smart people in place that are way smarter than me that are making those calls. My job's putting the right people together.
Yeah.
And if you do that, then you sit there and you let them do their jobs. When things get sideways, then you got to intervene. I mean, you have teams, you know that. When things aren't going right, that's when you got to intervene and you got to start trying to help steer the ship in the right direction. You know, the last couple of years, because I've been with Leah and because of this new car, we haven't had the performance that Stewart-Haas Racing is accustomed to and that we want to be at. It's learning a new car and venture. There's teams that with this new car have got better. There's teams that have been on top of their game that struggled with this new car, and we're one of those teams. But, you know, how you do it is having strong people behind you and in your camp. I mean, the empire you've built and what you have and the people you've surrounded yourself with are why you're successful with what you're doing now. Yeah. You have to guide the ship, but you have to have people that can also pull the rope and do the work and know your vision and how you want it. And that's what we have all across the board with all the entities we have. We have people that they know. The biggest thing I preach with them is communication. I can't fix a problem if I don't know there's a problem. And I literally called one of my Cup drivers last night and had a conversation with him, and he's like, well, I don't want to bother you. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I said, that's the dumbest thing you could say. I said, I own all this stuff.
Yeah.
I said, I want it to be successful. I'm not doing this just to have it.
Yeah.
I said, I want to win races. So if there's a problem and there's something that you and I can talk about to make it better, I want you picking that phone up at 2 a.m. if you think of something. That's what I signed up for. So there's a lot of phone calls. There's a lot of meetings. But we've got great people in place that do a good job.
Hey, if you like that video, you'll love the entire podcast. The Dale Jr. Download, it's available on all major podcast platforms.